Welcome to Sustainable Packaging with Cory Connors. Today's guest is Ross Guberman, the Senior Vice President of Sustainability at RTS. How are you, Ross?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Good. Thank you so much for taking time for the show. I love this room that you're in. It's beautiful. For those of the audience listening, he's in basically a soundproof room.
Yes, almost a soundproof room.
Yeah, yeah.
Close.
Looks awesome, like a recording studio, just really neat. So tell us about, how did you get into this world of sustainability?
Oh man, I got into sustainability, but I think it was probably a word, but it wasn't a word that was used in waste management. I started about 20 years ago in waste management, and the focus, as a lot of the focus is still now, was really on recycling and white paper. Office buildings were just generating tons and tons of white paper, and like it's kind of hard to think about now that that was really, kind of the gold for recycling, because now
Wow.
there's almost no paper. So it was really just about how do you capture that paper from everything else? And then in 2007, LEED popped up. And then all of a sudden, sustainability, energy efficiency, thinking on materials and resources, and then sustainability just kind of like exploded. It didn't really trickle to waste management though until, kind of recently, maybe the last 5-ish years or whatever, especially as China and countries out there really started, tightening what they were accepting. All of a sudden people have started like coming aware of like, oh, what's going on with recycling? And sustainability is now really kind of hitting the last frontier, which is waste and materials. So I've been involved for a long time, and it's nice to kind of be involved in sustainability officially. I haven't worked in it for quite some time.
That's an excellent point. I've never thought about the connection between LEED certification of a building and sustainability as a movement, because you're absolutely right. That created all these new intricacies in the world of sustainability, in recycling, in building materials, being sustainable building processes, all these different things. But yeah, and then white paper. No one's brought up white paper yet. That's such an interesting thought.
Yeah, it was, I mean, there were companies that were built just on collecting paper, and they would do it for free. Yeah.
They would do it for free because they could get paid to recycle.
They got a lot of money off that paper. Yeah.
Why can't we do the same with corrugated?
Well, we still do. Corrugated is probably one of the highest things. So when I also started, I remember a waste hauler talking to me about pickup trucks following them and getting ahead of their routes and stealing the cardboard from them, because there was, it's just money in the form of cardboard or paper.
I love that. Well, let's hope that continues. Let's hope there's value in that material and in all materials, because we need to keep recycling. But let's talk about RTS. What is it? What do you guys do?
So RTS, short for Recycle Track Systems. RTS is a technology and sustainability forward waste management company. So we all understand waste management. We're a consumption-based society. So we're making trash, we're making recycling, we're making organics or food waste. And that needs to be managed and removed and processed in ways. But RTS and its model is coming at it through the lens of technology and sustainability. So we recognize you still have trash, but if you start looking at it as through the data points you could collect and through the sustainable lens, you stop looking at it as a trash bag, and it's really a bag filled with food waste, glass, metal, plastic, paper, and then you start understanding there's actually different value we could provide from understanding the trash as materials, and find different upstream ability to reduce what's actually going into that trash. And if we can't do that, how can we create programs, education, training, start getting stuff out of those trash bags and into the places where we can get the value from it?
Sounds like a very valuable service, especially now with the onset of extended producer responsibility and these different laws coming to fruition that are going to require companies and possibly even individuals to be more aware of what they're recycling and not recycling. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, because a lot of the onus currently is still on the consumer. Now, as consumers, we have a responsibility because we are choosing to purchase things and consume them and dispose of whatever is left over. But if that leftover packaging doesn't have the ability to be fixed, reused, or recycled, that's not actually our problem. That's the manufacturer's problem. So I usually use, not to call out Sunkist, but as those you know, containers as kids, they're such composite materials, and it has plastic lining and the foil packaging, and it's just a useless product afterwards. It has no value at its end of life. We still want to drink the drink, but if it was made in a way so that it could have value afterwards, then we don't have to actually rely on recycling systems as much. And when we do have to rely on recycling systems, they aren't burdened with materials that have just no value at end of life, and recycling becomes more expensive to do at the facility side. And then it trickles up, you have cities getting rid of recycling because it costs them too much.
Right. Yeah. My friend Ryan Fox just posted about this morning about how cities are stopping curbside recycling
Yeah,
because of expense or lack
right.
of labor. If you don't have people to drive the trucks, you can't do it, or if it costs too much money. So what does RTS do? Do you provide the bins? Is it software? How
This
does the
provides a lot. So RTS provides the actual like dumpsters, compactors that you're putting the, bagged waste into. We provide technology on that equipment. So containers and dumpsters can have sensors on there that are taking pictures of what's actually inside of them. They're doing volume readings. They detect movement, so they know when they're picked up. On compactors, they're telling you how full is it at any given time, so you can start optimizing the usage of it, which trickles into GHG reductions, and actually starts touching upon environmental racism and justice. You think about all the trucking that's excessive, and as you can right size your service, you could reduce the number of trucks having to drive through communities and dispose of waste through those communities.
what is
Um,
that? What is that GHG? I haven't heard that, an acronym.
GHG is greenhouse gas emissions.
Oh,
So
greenhouse
anytime
gas.
people talk
Oh.
about global warming,
Jeez.
and
Yeah.
yeah, so those
Yeah.
are the scope 1, 2, and 3 that come out of generally
Yeah.
electricity use, but waste hauling is a scope 3, and it's a big one. And that's really our bread and butter is scope 3. We're committing, all those trucks to the road. And then so that technology collects data, and that data points help us again with right sizing, with understanding what's going on inside the site or program that's leading to overflows of trash or contamination in there. And then me and my team, we do a lot of really the on-site work of looking at how our program's set up, how are they educating, doing training. We do physical waste audits that tell you in that, like I was saying earlier, that bag of trash, that's not actually trash. It's
Right.
food waste, it's glass, metal, plastics that just needs to like find a new home.
Yeah, that's an excellent way to look at it. I like that a lot.
The EPA defines it as sustainable materials management.
Yeah. And that's what it should be. I feel like we've been looking at this wrong for way too long. We need to look at these materials as an opportunity, the old saying, a problem is an opportunity to succeed or an
Right,
opportunity to perform. Waste
right.
is an opportunity to recycle or an opportunity to reuse. I really like that. Well said.
Yeah, yeah. And you used the word that waste. So a lot of times people will say waste and recycling. And we've been conditioned to kind of prioritize recycling and feel good about recycling. And we do want to divert things for recycling, but recycling is also a waste product. You drink that canned drink, that metal can goes to recycling, but it's still waste, it's still left over. So really my foundation for how I approach the work at RTS and even in my own life is, can I reduce what I'm consuming to begin with? Because if you're reducing that behavior, you're not contributing to it. And then what can be reused, refurbished, all those things before you get to recycling. We all learned the 3 R's.
Yeah.
We've kind of lost sight of a lot of them out of recycling.
Very true. Very true. And then they kind of become just kind of like, yeah, or the 3
Right,
R's.
right.
Whereas it's becoming more important that we actually get to know what those mean and get to know how we can perform those.
Yeah, it's just a different business case. So
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are very familiar with energy efficiency. You walk in, you turn the light switch off all the time, save energy, reduce how much energy you use.
Right.
It's the same concept with what you're producing as waste because you pay to get remove it all. But how do you make a business case on like, if you just make less, you're moving less, and it's a different way of thinking.
So I'm getting the feeling that RTS has a goal of reducing the times that materials are picked up. Is that one of the goals of your system?
Yes. So we want to, one, just make all the service and routes efficient. We don't want to go and service containers that are only 50% full, because then you're driving for no reason. And that's where technology comes in, because we're able to see like, oh, the client thinks they need Monday, Wednesday, Friday, because that's what they're accustomed to, but they're only getting full once a week, twice a week. So it might look small per client, but overall we start reducing thousands of miles of trucks driving everywhere. Think of all the emissions from that, and all the wear and tear on our roads and all those things. So like every time we could take 1 mile off the road is pretty impactful.
Very much so. You mentioned cameras on your containers. Are those battery powered, or do they have to be plugged into a nearby building?
They're all battery powered, and the general life is about 5 years.
Oh, wow.
You could really kind of tune in how often you want to take photos. So that kind of depends a little bit, and they connect to different cellular systems. So they're remote. They're attached to those containers. They detect fire, which can happen.
That's very interesting, because I've heard about them. One of my best friends is actually a garbage man, or as he calls himself, a trash hauler. He's an awesome person. Yeah, sanitation specialist. But he said he's had a load on fire before, and it's pretty common to have trash go up in smoke.
Especially in those trucks, because they're compacting, and things go in there that are flammable, like propane tanks that aren't quite empty, batteries, all those scary things. You never know.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So as a senior vice president of sustainability, what's a normal day, other than obviously podcasts and things like that? What takes up most of your time?
Well, my days are pretty varied. I wear a lot of hats. RTS, I would say we're still a startup. We're getting closer to maturity, but so I work a lot in business development and sales. I'm usually the matter expert to come in to talk about prospective clients, about listening and understanding their needs, or listening to them and kind of saying, well, here's what I think you need. So really, what is the strategy around, kind of selling to our client base, and then executing those things we do sell. So we have sort of two sides of our services, which is benchmarking, which is the physical on-site work where we walk through a site, an office, what have you, to really grade everything going on with the actual program for waste management, and then physically auditing the bag, and then consulting. So I run some true zero waste certification projects where we're trying to take our clients to actual certification for zero waste.
Wow.
And then when they're not pursuing certification, we're still trying to get them to zero waste. Whether they know it or not, that's what we're trying to get to, but maybe not certification. But we're really always prioritizing how can we change the language, change the behavior, and get people to start, really adapting waste reduction, waste reuse, and then recycling, as needed.
And what part of the country are you guys in?
We are in, I would say, all of North America.
Oh, wow.
Including Puerto Rico, which I guess is still North America. And the services that we conduct within sustainability really have no geographical boundaries. We have a standardized system that can be replicated really in any country. So it's the waste removal services, we're kind of bound by the partners we have in those systems, but being able to come in and benchmark your facility, your site, it could happen, if Antarctica called, we could go there and do it.
That's the next one, I'm sure. Do you think reusable packaging will be a large part of the future of sustainable packaging?
I think reusable packaging used to be a large part of what we did.
Right.
Younger people than myself don't have as much experience, but like our parents all returned those Coke bottles to the store, and the milk bottles. And like, those are the same glass bottles we have now, and glass is reusable. We're just not using it in that way.
Right.
So I think reusable packaging exists. Even plastic straws are reusable infinite number of times. We just don't think of things and have the systems to do that. So we've just replaced those reusable systems with single-use disposable systems, to really prioritize the ease and the comfort of that. And, it's kind of marrying that. We still kind of want that in society. Clearly, we still want to be able to go in and get a coffee to go. But how do you have that coffee to go in a easily returnable, reusable cup that you could just drop off anywhere? Instead of the trash bin on the street, there's just drop-offs for those reusables. And we're not near there, but everything's reusable. We just need to use it in that way.
Yeah. And that's such a great point. Some of these new systems, people have been talking to me about like, wow, what an innovation being able to reuse. And I'm not really sure of the phrase to use, but it's like you said, it's been done before. It's a retro innovation. It's something we used to do, right?
Yeah.
Houses used to be built with a slot, so the milkman or the milk carrier could put the milk in your house for you and have you replace it with the empty bottles. This kind of thing is absolutely, in my opinion, that part of the future.
Yeah. Yeah. I think coupling, the ongoing need to still obviously have consumption in our society,
Yeah.
replacing things that are single-use disposable and have no end of life with those reusables or things that are more infinitely recyclable like aluminum, but at the same time still addressing excessive packaging, looking at the behaviors and how can we reduce what's kind of having to be generated as waste, understanding waste will occur, but we still need to reduce what's happening in the first place.
That's a wonderful point. It will occur.
Mhm.
And it kind of needs to, especially with sanitary conditions and the ability to keep food safe for people and not let it go stale. There's lots of things to think about in that realm. So yeah, great point.
Right, right. You can't eliminate all of it, but we could certainly do a little bit better job than
Oh,
we're
for
doing.
sure. Is part of RTS's capabilities scope 3 reporting?
Yes. So all of the data we do report out, we use the EPA WARM model to convert that data into what the GHG reduction or impact is. And then we're slowly working on with our hauling partners is what is the actual fleet they're using? How do we slowly migrate from diesel, maybe to biodiesel or compressed natural gas, or eventually how do we get to an all electric fleet so that we could then report back upwards, here's a reduction of scope 3. When you work with RTS, by default, we're working with an electric fleet sort of partnership. And, that feeds into their programs around trying to reduce their emissions overall too. So we become like sort of a net value partner in that way.
Well, I think you guys are going to be really busy over the next few years.
Busy so far.
There's a big push coming. I can feel it. I can feel this pressure of this force coming our way, where people are going to be all of a sudden very interested in what scope 3 means, and by law, right?
Right. I mean, people in the Southwest are living through it. I see every day the picture. Every day I see headlines saying like Lake Mead is getting even lower. Great Salt Lake is now, there's like vapors coming onto the city that are hazardous. And so it's real,
Yeah, and to be able to point to real things like Miami flooding and my city being 115 degrees in Portland, Oregon, to the point where I had to keep the family inside, that's amazing and disturbing. And so hoping these things will be taken more and more seriously as
Yeah.
these very
Yeah.
serious events continue to happen.
And then the same thing, we're running out of space to dig holes and put our trash. There's only so many landfill space. And like, on the East Coast, we're starting to reach capacity. So more stuff is going out to the mid plains and they'll reach capacity.
Right.
And people really don't like when you put incinerators in their neighborhoods, and trash. So like, some of it is force and demand. Some of it is like, there's actual climate, emergencies that are happening and we probably have passed the point, but it's never too late. We could still, make an impact.
Oh, I agree. I like to be very positive about what we can do today to help solve any problem. So well said.
Definitely.
So how do people get in touch with you all down there at RTS?
Yeah, so I'm gonna just read off a little piece of paper because I don't know our phone number by heart. You can always call us 833-RTS-INFO. Easy email is also info@rts.com. You could email me directly too, just ross@rts.com. RTS is all over social media. We have a great social media presence at RTS Green. I think we're on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, all those things. We also have a really great website with blog, a lot of resources. We have a pretty comprehensive food waste guide and ESG guide that has gotten a lot of great downloads. So a lot of great resources just on the website too.
That's excellent. I didn't know you were on TikTok. I'll have to check you out.
I am not on TikTok, but
or your company, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I have no idea what they're actually on TikTok. I don't know if it's on
I'm at Cory Gate, like my name, Cory with gated, like Cory. Yeah.
That's a nice
That's a nickname I picked up back in when I was very young at Weyerhaeuser making boxes. So.
Very cool.
Well, thank you so much, Ross, for being on. We really appreciate your wisdom. And I'd like to thank Landsberg Aurora for sponsoring this podcast. If you're listening, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. And please give us a review. It means a lot. Thanks, Ross.
Thanks for having me.